Red Brick Media. High quality CDs, DVDs, lectures, khutbah, conferences and Quran recitations. All revenue generated supports our dawah work, supported by visiting our store. You can now purchase directly from our site www.redbrickmedia.co.uk.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Welcome to the first episode of Gems from the Seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this series, what we want to do, we want to contemplate certain things and incidences from the Seerah of the Prophet sallallahu. We want to take the regular things that we've heard, stories that we've known all our life or since childhood, and then pause and focus a little bit more and ask, why did the Prophet ﷺ do this? Why did the Prophet ﷺ send this person? Why did he choose to do this instead of that? Why did this happen instead of the other? And when you stop and do that with the Seerah, first of all, you realize the depth of the Seerah. The Seerah is deep. You know, the Quran, you can keep looking at verses over and over and over again, and every time you can come up with more benefits. The Seerah, obviously, to a lesser degree, but it's also similar to that. The more you look at things, the more you stop and pause and say, why did the Prophet ﷺ choose this? Why did he do that? Why did he say that? You start to realize when you contemplate the wisdoms and the intelligence and the genius of the Prophet ﷺ. So then you walk away appreciating the Prophet ﷺ more, appreciating the Seerah more. Because there are two ways to look at the Seerah. One way is just to look at it as a story, and just appreciate it from a storytelling level. And then there's the more in-depth level, and that's when you can appreciate it so much more. So inshallah, in this series, we're going to take some known stories, things that we've known all along, and pause and ask questions about. Today we're going to look at one incident, how the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, مَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا وَقَدْ رَعَ الْغَنَمِ. There has not been a Nabi, a prophet, except that he has been a shepherd, or he herded sheep, or goats. Yani he was a shepherd at some point. So the question is, why were all the prophets at some point shepherds? Why shepherds? Why did Allah choose this occupation for every one of His prophets? So there's got to be some wisdoms behind that. And sometimes you'll read in a Seerah book 3 wisdoms, 7 wisdoms. You know, as a group you can contemplate and you may come up to 20 some wisdoms behind why the Prophet ﷺ and all the other prophets were shepherds. So let's just look at a number of things first. Number one, if you ever look at what psychologists or how they describe human beings, they say human beings are like sheep. They're social beings in the same way sheep are social. That they follow a leader and they go with the flow, or with the rest of the flock. And that's exactly how sheep are. So it's interesting just to note from a psychological point of view that Prophet ﷺ is dealing with an animal that behaves in a way similar to how human beings behave. Alright. The other thing, it's great that the Prophet ﷺ was a shepherd and he herded sheep and goat and not a camel herder. And there's a big difference between dealing with camels and dealing with sheep. Because as some people say, or if you've ever met a camel herder, they have a very different temperament. Because sheep are gentle animals and you barely have to raise your voice to move them from one place to another. But camels, there's a lot of beating and hush, hush, and yelling and threatening to move a camel. So imagine a prophet comes to his people and he was a camel herder first. Do you see how he would not be as gentle with his followers, with his people? So it's from the mercy of Allah that it's herding sheep specifically and not a camel herder. Then there's so many benefits. Like I said, it's a list of 20 plus, but you can look at all the benefits of being a shepherd. I mean, it teaches patience for sure, doesn't it? Because you just sit there and there's nothing to read. You can't go online, you just sit. Yeah. But when you sit, you contemplate the creation. You see the sky above you, you see trees, you see mountains, and you contemplate. How did this form? Who is the creator? So that's another benefit. Another one is that it teaches responsibility as well. The Prophet ﷺ is responsible over this flock, and he can't just go away and leave it or anything like that. I mean, 24/7, or as long as he's out there, they're under his responsibility. He has to keep his guard up. The other thing, you see the Prophet ﷺ then is looking at the sheep, and he's looking at dangers that come to them from a perspective that they can't see. Okay, they're closer to the ground. He can be at higher ground. He can see things that they can't see. The same way with his ummah. The Prophet ﷺ sees problems and issues and fitan that they're not able to see. So every way you look at it, you see there is tremendous training in the Prophet ﷺ being a shepherd first before becoming a prophet. And you get to learn also the idea of the fact that you can lose some of your flock. You know, the wolf might take some of your flock. You might lose some of your followers, and that has happened during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. So the idea is contemplate the stories that you know, the stories that you've heard before, and you will come up with so many magnificent wisdoms. So now you continue this exercise now. We only mentioned 5 or 6. Keep going and try to get up to 20. Why was the Prophet ﷺ a shepherd? Why were the Prophet's shepherds first? And so inshallah we'll see you in the next episode as we contemplate more gems from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Thank you for attentive listening. Sallallahu barak ala Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم